Well, hello. You know, when I'm working in the garden, I think it's always good for some quick updates. So these are my fall kind of vegetables that I have going. The cabbage could be a little late, but I am spraying it with some BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, an organic spray to use on moths, cabbage eating worms, things that lay eggs on the broccoli and the cauliflower. So you can see there's a few holes that have formed. Every so often, maybe about once a week, I'm coming out and I'm making sure that I can get it sprayed with this organic spray. It's really your best defense, because why would you want to use pesticides and things that you shouldn't ingest into your body on your food? So I will never use those on my food or here at the farm. And instead I use things like Bacillus thuringiensis. I mix it up, just keep it in a hand sprayer that I can spray all these different things like my Brussels sprouts and my cauliflower. So while I'm doing this, I've been getting a lot of questions. And they have been about, how do I prepare my beds, my garden beds, my vegetable beds, whatever it is, for fall? So I'm gonna be honest. There's not a lot you do, but what I do is, as we're getting into late October, getting into when things start getting frosts and freezes and we don't get as much done, I start pulling the things that are just kind of spent for the year. So my things like my collard greens, my vates, these have been in most of the year. Now, these were ones I planted for, you know, early summer use. And since then they've kind of overgrown. You can also plant them later and have them for fall use. And they do well with a frost or two on them. But these are actually getting kind of overgrown, so I'm pulling them. Now, this is great green material. And what I'm gonna use this for is my compost. I'm not gonna throw it out. So it had a life for quite a while to be used in the kitchen. And now it's gonna have a life in my compost pile. Now, if you have chickens, if you have animals that love the greens, these are great to feed to them. I don't yet, and I know I need them, but I don't. Instead, I have overgrown collards that need to come out. Look at the roots on those. But thankfully, these raised beds have pretty loose soil that I can pull them out. So while I'm pulling those out, I'm gonna leave certain things you can see here in the garden. I have some kale that's still left. This is a great variety of kale. I like it because it's that dark green, but it has then the nice kind of airy texture to it. It works really well in salads. I need to get my carrots in, but I still have time. I don't mind if they get a frost or two on them. I have Swiss chard that I'm still eating from. I'm coming out and I'm just cutting it and using it. But on down the line, if you follow my stories, I have taken out all my tomatoes. They were spent. They had an infestation of like the biggest family of tomato worms. Like those families get way too big, and they were infesting all my tomato plants. So when I get, this is an empty bed now. Every year I rotate my beds because things like soil-borne diseases on tomatoes can live in the soil. So you want to rotate them at least, you know, every year, but not come to the same spot for at least 4 years. Hopefully that will be a little bit better for the tomatoes again at that point. So to get this ready for next year, I really do nothing other than I do store away all my tomato cages. So these, I know that showing these is a mistake because I always get asked, where do you get such nice large cages? Sadly, these are not made anymore. They're very heavy duty, high gauge steel, powder coated. But I do make sure, you know, I am someone that likes to keep things for as long as I can. I grew up with a family, with a dad, that he always had my sister and I, every year at least once, wax the tractors they used in the field. I mean, you want to talk about a job you don't look forward to. It is waxing the hood of a tractor. But what that taught me was you keep things nice, whether they're brand new, whether they're old, they can look new for a long time. So at the end of the season, I take these out of the garden, I stack them, and then I store them away in my shed. That helps make so, you know, there's gonna be chips on the powder coating, eventually there's gonna be rust, but storing them away every year, it just helps stave that off for as long as I can. I also will take out all these U-posts or T-posts that I used to keep them sturdy and upright. You know, I live in a really open area out here, and during the summer, spring, fall, it gets really windy, and you have to make sure things are staked. You know, in town, you may be able to get by with just that cage in the ground, but where I live, I need to put these in the ground. So I take all these out too, because what I like to do is know that I'm rotating my beds kind of in a counterclockwise motion every year. So next spring, this bed is going to have my spring cabbage, my spring broccoli, cauliflower that's right beside it. So I want to make sure that come spring, all I do to this bed is put down some fresh compost and then I can get planted in it right away. So I don't want to leave any of these here that could be frozen into the ground and I can't get in here till later. So instead I take them out now and I do nothing to the ground. I don't do cover crops because cover crop usually is for one, kind of giving you a protection from any weeds that could come up, but it also helps break up your soil and send roots down into the soil. These are raised beds. I never till them and I don't drive on them, and I try to step on them as minimally as possible. Now here in the fall when I'm taking out my tomato cages, obviously I have to make a step, but the soil is never getting compacted so much that I need to send roots down into it to break it up. Instead, what I do is in the spring lay down a couple inches maybe of some good organic compost, which just adds some nice nutrients and organisms back to the ground. Maybe add some worm castings, but then I'm ready to plant right away because raised beds have beautiful, look at that airy soil. It's always ready to work in. It has a nice loaminess to it. And you can see how beautiful it is. It's such an easy soil to be able to work in and to be able to actually plant in. So that's why these beds don't need a lot of preparation and they don't need things like cover crops. Just some good compost every year just to add some natural nutrients back to the soil. So I have my peppers here and I let those go until I don't need them. Right now you can see they have a lot of green growth still on them. There's lots of peppers on them. I could can more, but I'm using them mostly right now for fresh use, giving them away to friends or family that want them. So that's kind of what's going on in my garden right now. It's kind of that cleanup, but you don't have to do too much work. You don't have to really put anything on your gardens to get them ready for next year. You just have to clean them up so next spring when you come out, you don't have a lot of work left to do. So I'm gonna keep doing that. You got a little garden update, and we can all get ready and do some work.